A California man spent his entire 62 years believing that he was an orphan and an only child because of a tragedy which allegedly took place in the 1950s.
But due to modern technology and determination, he would come to learn that he not only had brothers and sisters, but lots of them, and right here in Western New York.
Our Dave McKinley brings us the heartwarming story of a family reunited.
I think I'm gonna just cry, probably be speechless.
These three sisters grew up in a family of 7 children, knowing for about the past 40 years that there were others.
My oldest sister told us because when she was 16, she was going to get married and she had to go to vital statistics for her birth certificate. They were flipping through the pages and they said, oh, there's your brother, there's your brother, there's your sister. She's like, no. And they're like, yeah, you have 4 of them. And they told her the names.
That's when their mom, Beulah Silowick, told them that in the late 1940s, when she was barely a teenager herself, she had been married before to a much older man with whom she had 4 children and who was abusive.
She told us a story how one day she took the children and she ran away to a neighbor's house and hid herself and the children in a barn and lived there as long as she could. And the woman who lived in the house would come out and sneak her food for her and the kids until her husband found out and he made her leave. So then she had to go back to the bad situation she was in.
Authorities at the time then stepped in to place her children in foster care.
And that's when the state must have took over and adopted them out.
She said when she did try to get them back, she was heartbroken because they didn't know where they were at that point anymore because their names were changed and everything sealed.
Every time we brought it up, tears would come to her eyes.
Finally, 9 years ago, with their mother's blessing, they began posting her story and what information they had on adoption websites.
Right.
Yeah, we all did.
Right.
We all put it on different sites.
Yes.
But along with Beulah's blessing came trepidation as to what might happen if they found any of her lost children or what the truth about them might bear.
Her worst fear was being rejected or finding out that they had a tragic life.
A couple of years ago, they got a hit, or so they thought, on a missing brother.
It turned out it wasn't him, and it was heartbreaking.
In frail health and in a nursing home, on April 17, 2014, Beulah Silowick, age 79, went to her grave, never having gotten the reunification she craved.
You know, she hid it, but I knew it broke her heart.
And then 1 year later, almost to the day after Beulah's death,
A woman, Kathleen Harris, emailed me and said that her birth father's name was Albert Graber from the Buffalo area, and I was just blown away.
especially when she sent this picture of her dad, Robert Harris, of Rancho Cordova, California.
As soon as I saw a picture of him, I just knew it was our brother because he looked identical to one of our other brothers.
Their brother, Pete.
That day happened to be my brother's birthday, April
Yes.
21st. And when we got that picture, it was the picture of him. They were identical.
I was jumping up and down at my computer, crying already before, any DNA because my heart knew it was him just looking at that picture.
And a DNA test would confirm there was a 99.9999% chance that this man was Beulah's son and their long-lost brother.
We were ready and excited and just wanted to see him. We felt like we waited our whole lives for that day and we just couldn't wait any longer.
But then they had to consider, as exciting as it would be for them, it could be overwhelming for him.
We knew about him for many years. He didn't have a clue about any of us.
That's why it's harder on him, because we found 1, he found 7.
Right, yeah. I was really, really nervous, calling him. I didn't know what I was going to say.
But he did just what a big brother might do.
He talked to me like I wasn't a stranger, and he even said, "I love you, sis," at the end. I said, "I love you too," and it was a 20-minute conversation, but it was a very loving, sweet conversation.
And long enough to make a plan.
I think there's going to be one issue is we're all going to fight over who's going to hug him first because that's what's been going through my mind the last few weeks.
On a sunny September afternoon, a Southwest flight touched down in Buffalo, from which Robert Harris, a 62-year-old hardware salesman, would step into a world which he never knew until recently ever existed. And not long after, and not far away, as that sun began to lower, he would emerge from a rented SUV carrying pictures with his daughters and grandkids in tow in a parking lot in Cheektowaga.
Been 62 years. Never met my family, so it's time to do it.
Indeed, it was.
Who is gonna hug him first? Are we all gonna run up at the same time, or that's gonna be a little challenging because there's 7 of us.
Who am I hugging? Bernice. Hi, Bernice. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Everyone, of course, would get a turn. His brother, who looked so much like him.
I brought my attorney who tried to steal my good looks. You know me? Bob.
And Liz, who had been the eldest of the clan.
This is very weird for me. I've never had a big brother before.
Thanks a lot. You have.
You know, I noticed.
Glad to finally meet you, and
Likewise. Yeah, this is overwhelming
it's
for
been a
me.
miracle for all of us. And my sister, our sister,
Right.
Liz, was looking the longest.
We looked so long. It was just, it's just amazing that we found them.
And it
It's-
is
been-
most
I
beautiful
can't even
basket I've
explain
ever
it.
seen in my life. Thank you. That's
I
awesome.
can't.
Like,
Smile!
There was time, finally, for a family photo. And then to a family restaurant, these family members would adjourn
let the older brother get the door.
to break bread together for the first time as a family.
I'd like to thank you for staying with it, and you guys for never giving up. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Pictures were passed, stories were told, and for the first time, the gaps of lives lived apart began to fill.
So this is the only thing that I have left from the foster home. 6 pictures in here. The last one is when I was adopted. So I'll let you look at them. That's the foster home.
As he wiped a tear or two, they began to look at the life of their brother, starting with those 6 precious pictures.
I worked real hard to keep that because when I was adopted, they threw everything away that I had.
As an infant, Robert Harris, born Albert Graber, was placed into the foster care of a farm family somewhere in western New York until the age of 9, when he was adopted by a couple in Tonawanda who would eventually move all over the country.
Well, I had a few items from the foster home that came with me when I was adopted, and then the people that adopted me felt like, you know, this is a new life, we got a new family, and we're starting over, and they pretty much washed kind of everything I had, and it was probably for my best interest, but I was able to hold on to about 6 pictures, and I hid them, and I still have them.
You hid them.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? You just stick them under the mattress?
I
What'd
just
you do?
kept hiding them, and nobody found them. It was just something I wanted to hold on to. It was the only thing I could really cherish. Yeah.
Along with a new life and a new name, his adoptive parents gave him something else. They gave him a story.
The story I was told is my parents had passed away when I was 3 days old in a car accident.
And that he had no siblings or surviving relatives, a story he would come to accept.
It didn't add up to me. It really didn't.
Kathleen Harris is Robert's daughter, who long suspected that if a couple had died in a car accident in Buffalo on March 16, 1953, tragically leaving behind an infant son, there'd have to be an account of it somewhere.
So we're looking for death certificates or any kind of news articles or anything, and then just couldn't find anything about any of the stories. And he didn't really talk about it because it was painful. And we understood that and we respected that completely. So I kind of just went off on my own and decided to see if I could find anything.
Just last April, after years of searching, she came upon this entry on a chat board, which had been filed by Jenny back in 2009.
And so I read the whole article and I sat straight up and read intently and saw an email address, clicked it, and sent an email with a prayer and said, hopefully we'll hear something back. And I heard something back the next day, and I was just elated.
It was a shock. It was like I couldn't believe it. I was like, you know, are you sure?
So too is finding out you actually have 70 members of an extended family in western New York who he met during a picnic while visiting here.
I'm amazed at how big the family is. I'm amazed at the love, and just so happy to be here.
There isn't a word to describe it. There really isn't. It's overwhelming joy in the most absolute miracle of ways.
And during their time together, there was a lot of attention focused on one picture in particular.
There's a picture of me at Lake Erie with a little girl standing next to me, which I found out now was my sister.
It is Ardelis, Another one of Beulah's children, born in 1951, whereabouts unknown, along with another brother, Alvin, also born in the early 1950s, and a sister, Patricia, born in 1948, all with the last name of Graber.
Now we're going to start looking for them.
They are on a mission for themselves and for their mother.
I wish it could have happened when she was here finding Robert, you know.
I had never seen a picture or didn't know her name.
And no doubt in our mind that it was somebody up there who made this possible.
Now that she's gone, maybe she just pushed it along and helped it.
She gave a piece of our broken heart back.
My brothers and sisters that were taken away at the same time I was apparently are probably close to the same age as me. And hopefully by chance, maybe one of them will see this report and come forward, because that would be absolutely awesome if we could get the rest of the family together. That would really be cool.
An incredible story by Dave McKinley there.
Your eyes are a little glassy.
Yeah, they're a little
Lev.
bit.
Hold
How
on.
could you
Here.
not? Yeah, I know.
Here you go.
I tell you what, I mean, dogged determination. It's just the human spirit, and he
Right.
kept those pictures, and by sheer luck and prayers, they were able to be answered. Hopefully, even more so.
Yeah, well, they are on a mission clearly
Yeah.
to connect the rest of the family, and you can certainly identify, you know, when you have family and you know they're somewhere. He wasn't going to let go either.
Yeah, I know, and he knew it in his heart. He had to find them.